Hello everyone, welcome back to the next episode of the Road to Be the Master series. This is the episode number 96, in which I will cover the round number 6 from 5th Rigoyanos Memorial Round Robin Tournament. Let's see it. In that round, I got paired with white pieces against an international master, the second one of the tournament. As you can tell, his rating already has declined, but it does not tell you much. Presumably, this player plays a lot such round-robin tournaments, therefore he bleeds a little bit of rating here, a little bit of rating there, and for that reason, obviously, I was there to fight, and let's see how did the game go. I obviously started with e4, which was my weapon for this tournament, and my opponent replied with c5. I was more than happy to see it. I considered mostly Sicilians or Caraccans, and in Sicilian the positions are generally sharper, so I was up for it. After knight f3 e6 we went into yet another open Sicilian this tournament, and to my surprise my opponent played a6. And if you remember the mentioned video, the recap of round number 4, in there I told you that I expected Can Sicilian to exist, to happen on the board. However, my opponent switched the approach and he played Taimanov. In here it was the other way around. I was expecting Taimanov and I got Can. And what good thing about it is that this player, this opponent, could not have known what I have prepared for round number 4. So even though this move in isolation surprised me, I was over the moon to see it because I knew that I can unleash my secret prep that my opponent did not see it coming, because he couldn't have known, right? All of this stuff happening. Presumably he also went away from the Taimanov because I showed a good understanding of the variation in the round number 4. So his switch kind of makes sense, but as I've said, he just got under a big preparation. What is it? In my database, I believe I have either this or that move, or maybe both. But for the round number 4, and therefore for this, I have prepared c4. c4 trying to take over the center and going into Maroczy type of structures, or hedgehog from the black's perspective. So knight f6 is usual, knight c3, 2, queen c7, a3, taking away the b4 square. As you know, I like such move in those type of structures. And in here, usually how does the game continues is b6, bishop e3, bishop b7, hitting the pawn, f3, solidifying it. And as I've said, this Maroczy type of structure, against which opponent usually goes for the hedgehog structure. And you know, it's not about the variations, it's about the understanding of the position of the structure that arises. However, my opponent in here played knight c6, and already at this point I was out of my notes, and the question as always is, are my notes okay? Or are they not full in a sense? So does it mean that this move is an okay one, but I have not included it because I was either too lazy or I didn't know it? Or is it just not the best approach? I decided to go for the confident round, meaning that I expected my notes to be okay. Therefore, I assumed that this move is not on the list of the best moves possible in this position, and I decided to just continue normally. In general, if you think about it, in the hedgehog structure, knight on d7 would have made a little bit more sense than the one on c6, so I decided to just continue developing as usual. If there is the hedgehog structure incoming, I mean, I'm happy for it. If not, well, I didn't know what can arise in this position, and but I expected one thing. After knight takes d4, draw offer happened. So my opponent decided to offer me a draw. He was late for the game for like 5 minutes. As you can tell, his clock did not change at all. So he was blitzing out the moves, and I knew that this means either a perfect preparation or just, you know, playing some more or less random moves. Obviously they are healthy and all that, but maybe not the most precise ones. And I went for this scenario. I did not think that it was big preparation from my opponent. And for that reason, for the reason that I knew that I am a little bit better already, and for the reasons I told you at the beginning of the video that I want to play for a win, I just said, okay, let's play. The only question is though, how should I take back the knight? Because in general, queen takes d4 would be more preferred way, because queen is much more active there, and yeah, it covers plenty of dark squares and whatnot. However, always there is a question of knight g4, right? I don't ever want to give up this bishop, so I have to calculate, is it okay for me still to go for such line? And I thought that it's okay. I found queen b6 move, and if the exchanges happen, I'm more than happy with that endgame. I play f3, I play castle. Those are terrible holes in the opponent's position. This is something that will never be in the game, same as that one. So yeah, overall I'm fine. The only question was what to do after bishop d6, and I found that I can still take, play bishop d4 hitting the pawn, because such move is never about a good one because knight d5 happens. This is a big problem for the opponent, and if that's the case, opponent would have to perhaps go back, and yet again, long castle f3, solid, good endgame, I will grind it out. For those reasons, I decided to indeed take on d4 with the queen. Bishop takes, it's obviously very good too, but I thought queen d4 checks out, and it was true. Bishop d4 was the more commonly played route because indeed we are still kind of in the opening book, but queen d4 is the most precise one. I obviously refused the draw offer, my opponent played d6, solid approach, f3, solid approach, e5 kicking away my queen, queen d2, bishop e6, and already after d6 I kind of felt where it's going, this position I mean. E5 bishop e6 was a natural follow-up. Without it, to be honest, I would take such position to continue. I have all the space, maybe not all the activity because opponent is not that far behind, but I can play whatever. I can either go for something like this or maybe something completely different. I am the, let's say, king of this position. I can choose what I want to do. So yeah, this approach was logical. However, I felt like that after knight d5 takes, I have to be much better. Rook c8 was played rather instantly, not allowing me to play rook c1 with a tempo, because obviously now I don't want to play this since too many exchanges would have happened. So we got ourselves this position. My opponent, as you can still tell on the clock, was blitzing out all the moves, but I knew that I have to be better, simply. There is this approach saying that whenever such scenario, such dynamic of the pawn structure applies on the board, it's kind of pointing out into the direction that since this is my pawn chain, this is his, let's say, he has this sector of the chessboard to play on, right? And I have this one. As you can tell, mine is much bigger. Mine already have pieces that are indeed looking into that direction, and it's no some pieces, it is the bishop pair, right? So I have to be better. I am overdeveloped, I have space advantage, like everything works in my favor, I would say. So I knew that I am much better actually, not a little bit. The only question is how and if will I be able to convert it truly. Since rook c1 is not possible, I wanted to move the queen so that the bishop would be protecting the rook and attacking along the c-file, so that's why I've played queen b4. Opponent continued development, I played rook c1, queen d7. I wanted to take on c8 before castling so that rook will not take the rook but rather the queen, because on the queen I can make up another tempo. Bishop e2 happened, castle, and in here I am very happy about my choice because, usually you would just make a castle and claim that, okay, rook is into the game, but I wanted to have both the king and the rook into the game. That's why I played king d2. I very like this move because, as I've said, since this pawn structure kind of implies that the game will be on the queen side, and presumably we will be entering some type of endgame as long as the exchanges along the c-file continue, my king would be actually useful there in the endgame, so I wanted to keep it there. My opponent though obviously played queen d7, so I'm not in time precisely to get the tempo, but rook c1 is played anyway, rook c8, and for the opponent it was rather easy to continue until this point. I'm laughing that he's not thinking, but at the same time his choices were rather obvious as long as he went for this knight d4, d6, e5, bishop e6 approach in the very early opening phase. Then it's all about, consequences of that. And now I have the question, how can I continue? And to be honest, I was thinking for, I believe, around 20 minutes in here, and I just got lost in my thoughts because there is so little concrete stuff, there is so much not concrete stuff that after a while I just got confused. What did I calculate? What was better than what and why? Because I was calculating, should I take the rook or should I allow to be taken? Should I allow to be taken on c1 or should I play 2c3 or should I play 2c4? Should I start pushing already? Should I maybe firstly claim the dark squares? Like plenty of questions. The answer is yes, you can do it, yes, you can do it, yes, you can do it, like whatever. Because as I've said, it's not about the concrete stuff, but rather the approach. So it took me a while to just make a decision, because whatever decision I make, it will not be a bad one, I assume and I believe. So in the end, I opted for rook c4. Maybe bad, maybe not, I'm not sure. The idea was that it covers the c file as high as to the fourth rank. So I saw some kind of scenarios where my king can enter the game like that. Imagining that, let's say, as I've said, heavy pieces are gone. This would be the scenario in which my king can indeed offer some value there. My opponent played quickly h6. Those 5 minutes that you see on the clock are lost not because he was thinking, but rather because he was not at the chessboard. He was just having a chat with his friend. So it's not like it was well fought move. And this perhaps caught me off guard in some way, because I kind of lost my focus. I just wanted to perform my moves that I was thinking about for 20 minutes. So I continued with a4. After he took, I took. After queen c8, this was the only moment where I had a choice. And I disregarded this h6 as a good setup, as a good move, as a useful move. And I thought that I can continue doing whatever I want to do. An opponent is just waiting for me to do something. And initially, I wanted to play the funny line in which I would go king c3, king b3, king a3 to put my king there. And it's quite a road to get there with the king from e1, especially since many of you, I would assume, would go to g1. So plenty of space would be covered by my king. And the point was that, ideally speaking, I would like to have king on a3, pawn push to a5, and pawn pushed to b4, queen somewhere along the c file, so that in the ideal scenario I am exchanging the queens and I'm ready for b5 breakthrough with the king close, and either I should get the material advantage, or should I maybe get so much space advantage that maybe I will go for either of the weaknesses. This was more or less my thought process. Nothing concrete yet, unfortunately, and that's always where I kind of get confused, unfortunately, as you could have told in the round number 4. In the end, however, I decided against this strange looking idea of the king, and I played queen c3, just hoping to firstly push the pawns, and maybe assuming that the queens will be exchanged along the c file anyway, so my king will be anyway around here. However, only after I made the move, after knight d7, I realized that I allowed one of two things. First one is the knight on c5. If I allow the knight on c5, it's not the end of the world, but it may come with a tempo onto my pawn. And I was not sure if I am already happy about pushing the pawn forward. And if I want to cover the square and play b4, this is something I allowed by not moving the king, which is the exchange of the bishops, which is one of my biggest advantages, because bishop pair in such type of the position, or not even the bishop pair, the fact that this bishop was so terrible just one move ago makes this position better for me. If I will exchange those bishops, most of my advantage is gone. If I will allow knight c5, it's not like my advantage is gone, but I just kind of dislike the position. And on top of that, I got the vibe that my opponent kind of does not care about the game. So I thought, okay, I will just assume I will live this game and this life as if bishop g5 does not exist as a move. And I will just, play b4 straight away. As you can tell, half a minute spent just to not allow knight c5, thinking that my opponent is just kind of randomizing his decisions instead of thinking properly strategically about the game. But obviously I was mistaken. This was just big omission on my part. Queen c3 b4 was not the greatest continuation. Queen c3, slight inaccuracy. b4, even bigger one. Allowing bishop g5 was not ideal ever, because after takes, what is my advantage? Okay, this pawn chain is a little bit bad one. This is a little bit of a weakness, so nothing has changed in terms of opponent's problems, but a lot of things have changed in terms of my ability to push the opponent. Because imagine the situation where I want to put the pressure to the pawn. b5, a5, and I'm nearly lost, because knight will be planted on c5, attacking my weakness, controlling all squares around it. All the dark squares are weak. The queen can enter plenty of ways. I have to worry about it. So I would really have to be precise to not even have problems in this endgame. However, I assumed. that if I would have wanted, I could have played bishop e2, suggesting a queen trade, offering a draw, it would be taken, no questions asked. I was nearly sure of it. But I didn't want the game to end such way. And at the same time, I had to like figure out what to do further, going further into it, right? So I began with a5, which is, I guess, a good move because it keeps the pawns on the dark squares, not allowing the knight to get either of the, let's say, outpost ever. And after king f8, it struck me that I have a tactical opportunity. Basically, after misplaying it strategically, the only opportunity to win the game in my eyes. I calculated it as deep as I can, and I went for it. Can you see the tactical opportunity that I have? Um, it was bishop takes a6. That's the opportunity. Why do I say this word opportunity? Because it's not winning objectively, but practically I'm putting some pressure, I'm asking few questions. Obviously, what's the point? First of all, it came to my mind because I realized that the queen is still left not protected. Instead of king f8, I expected the queen to move somewhere, and this would be a non-option, right? Non-existing one. But after king f8, I spotted maybe. And obviously the other part of me thinking about this endgame, about that endgame, every time beforehand was that since I am pushing and a b pawns with the limited space for the opponent, I know by default that against the pawns on the edge of the board, knight is not working too well. So I had this idea all along throughout all the game. That's why it kind of opened the doors in my head to allow myself such sacrifice, to go for such idea. The idea is this: after bishop a6, obviously opponent have to take the queen. Here, he takes the bishop, obviously. And now I play b5. I am creating a pawn breakthrough with the hopes, with the idea of completing it and winning the game thanks to this pawn, which will be better in this scenario than the knight. That was my approach. Obviously, though, it's a risky one because, well, the knight is not dealing that well with pawn on the edge of the board that often. However, a knight is a knight, so giving up the bishop like that was really had to be calculated well. But I trusted my calculations and I went for it. In here, the best move that exists in the position is the one that did not even cross my mind, did not cross my mind of my opponent, and it's one of the funniest ever, because logically speaking, you would like to keep the knight near this a file, trying to, catch the a pawn. You know what is the best move in this position? Knight to f6, funnily enough. Why? Because after I take the pawn, knight e8 happens, a7, knight c7 happens. So the knight is just on time to protect from promoting. Is also on time to protect fifth rank so that my king has no easy route to enter. And if I start to do that, opponent can also start to go with the king. And after this, and that, now he created a fortress along the sixth rank and I will not be able to push through it. So I'm down a knight. However, the very same applies for this king, because I have created a shield from the pawns and the king. So my king would like to get to the knight. I will not be able to do so. Opponent's king would like to get to the pawns. He will not be able to do so. So we are basically staring each other in the eyes. We cannot do much. So presumably the game would have finished like here and there or something like it. Funny stuff, and obviously out of our minds. That's right. This is just the computer suggestion because it's the last move that you would ever want to consider in this position. The other way of presumably drawing this position, which I actually saw for black, is to just simply accept the pawn. Why is that? I have to obviously go up to try to get the pawn and then help my pawn with promotion. King e7, king b5, king d6. King is already in the square of the pawn, meaning that my pawn is having no chances to promote. But since my opponent wasted so many tempos on bringing the king around here, I can try to do this that way, to just grab pawn by pawn by pawn. Unfortunately, it only looks like it's completely crushing, but my opponent have knight c5 move, and in itself it's blocking the pawn, and once I accept the pawn, now it's forcing my king and the pawn. That's annoying thing. And I, from the very distance, when I actually sacrifice the bishop, I saw this line and I knew that either I will take that pawn or I will take that one. So I have 5 pawns against 2, let's say those, and the knight. And this means that I have slightly better chances of winning, thanks to the fact that I have such a healthy pawn structure. Everything is compact. I have opportunities to exchange the pawns. I will be having opportunities to create passed pawns. Knight is a little bit out of play, and it would make my opponent waste a few tempos here and there. And I decided that this relatively risk-free position in which I may win, I may not win, and it's still a better attempt than trying to win this type of position without sacrificing, if that makes sense. So it's move number 26, and I've calculated under move number 35, so quite a long calculations, and I was happy with it because I knew that this is the only way for the opponent to survive, meaning that after bishop I6, he had to take, he had to take, he had to take. Knight f6 I haven't seen, as I've said. However, my opponent played knight c5, and as you can tell, critical moment of the game, and he just wasted 2 minutes. Used 2 minutes on the clock. I was like, I'm spending like 15 here. Like, show some respect, you know? I mean, my calculation is rather good. So what do you want to tell me, my opponent? Like, you calculate 10 times faster and as good as myself? So I was kind of really struck in surprise. Also because I knew that this move, according at least to my calculations, should be losing. Why? Because obviously it's played with the intent of even winning the game, because after I take the pawn, knight takes, king c4, knight c7, once more I have this blockade, unfortunately, and my pawn also cannot move. I'm losing this game, but I don't have to take already. I can place king c4 first. If my opponent takes, then he lost a crucial tempo on playing a move, helping me out with the king advanced. So he cannot really do it. He does not want to really do it. He has to start bringing his king around. And now I can take. And in this crazy variation, knight was on c7, and it did not have to make any more move. And in here, it's like it will make few more moves. My king is entering the position with the tempos. And basically, once more, I sacrificed my bishop on move number 27. This is move number 33, so 7 moves deep. In here, I still have calculated from the distance the winning position, which was, after king b7, I am just pushing the pawn, right? He will play whatever, like king d7 maybe. a6, takes, and such pawn endgame will always be won for me. Why? Because this is the bad pawn, and even though king might go as far as here, let's say after king a7, I have the opposition, and I have 2 squares to go around, while my opponent does not. He will always be left out. So he can play whatever he wants. I will just stand with my king and wait. I can just not care. Maybe in here I can actually start caring because I don't want to have too much pressure. I would just stop everything like that. One more move, and that's it. King has to step away. I go here, right? I go here, here. Everything is taken. Everything is mine. So I was so in awe of my, let's say, calculations that I just simply went for it. And apparently, this move is giving away all the advantage. All of it. This game, this endgame is no longer won. And when I will show you how, you will not believe it. Obviously, if I have known that, or even if I would be willing to spend some time on this position, because as you can tell, I have 26 minutes on the clock and not too many decisions in the game that I will have to think about. I could have simply took the pawn here. If he goes like that, whatever, I can go back. Now I have 2 passers, and the knight is not dealing well enough with one. I have 2. I have everything. I can play with this pawn or that pawn, or then with the king towards those pawns. Like, I'm winning in endless amount of ways, endless. And but I was so blinded by this idea, this variation that I calculated from the very far away, that I just went for it thinking, what can happen wrong? Nothing, right? I was even laughing at my opponent, like, international master. At the very moment after sacrificing my bishop, he spent just 2 minutes He went into lost variation, like a junior player, you know? And only after, oh sorry, only after it went wrong and he actually acknowledged that at this point he was thinking for 10 minutes when everything is lost, what's he doing? What is this decision making? What is this time management? What is this game overall? Like I was just chilling, I was just happy. But he was doing what I did not, which is to really get into the endgame as it is, because I was looking at it from far away. He looked at it now. What is the problem with King B7? Guys, King D7 happened. I play A6, as I've told you. If he takes, I'm winning and whatnot. He played F5, and I was like, okay, yeah, F5, you know, some attempt to make a pawn breakthrough. I don't want to do this because then that and this and that, whatever. I don't care. I don't want it. I don't want to calculate. Let's play G5, G4. He plays F4. I'm like, okay, strange. I go there. When he will resign? The answer is never, because he can draw the game by playing knight to A8. And when I saw it, immediately, you know, wave of heat inside my body went through my body, because I realized, what have I done? I was so clueless. I was so overconfident when I was not supposed to be like that I completely missed this amazing resource to save the game. Opponent, instead of giving the knight away for a pawn, he gives me the knight for free. For free, for nada. Why is that? Because anytime I take it, I am in stalemate. This pawn is now not helping me. It's making my life sad. Very, very sad. Amazing stuff. When I saw knight 8, I was like, wow, how could I have missed it? And I know how. It's because from this moment, it's quite hard to see knight a8 at the end of the variations, which are plenty of them, 10 moves deep. But I could have just spent a few minutes like in here, which is a critical moment, to be honest. Either I take the pawn and win like that, or I play like this and win like that, except I am not winning in the latter variation. And I didn't, I did not think, I did not use my time properly, and I got punished. Knight a8, guys, knight a8. Nothing I could do. I just look at the position in disbelief for a few seconds. I played king b8. Every time that knight jumps away, then I push the pawn, give the pawn for the knight, and I'm winning the game, right? Once more, because this pawn endgame is always winning thanks to the opposition. But my opponent obviously does not move the knight. He just leaves it there. King d8. King b7, king d7, nothing happens. a3, king d8. He just goes like that all the time. In here, new opportunity opens up. I can play like this to attack the pawn, but he protects. And I cannot go any further to the square other than b7, so I go back, he go back. And obviously I can just start repeating moves once more. We can do it for a few more times. We can agree to a draw maybe, but I just simply couldn't bring myself to offering a draw after such a missed win yet another time during the same tournament. So I just calculated funny line. As you know, in the round number 4, I missed a win, I misplayed the position, and in the end I self-stalemated. I made my opponent stalemate me, and in here I decided, let's just go for it again. I took the knight, he played king c7, stalemating my king. The only possible move for me is h4. I play it, he takes, and all of a sudden he has a passer, but I play g5 with the hopes of him playing h3, g6, h2, and I'm stalemated completely, even though he is one square away from promoting. Funny line, I guess that's the only joy I will have from this game. However, he did not go for such funny line, he just played g6, and in here I got self-stalemated, if you may say. So that was the finish of this bad game, to be honest. My opponent did not put enough pressure, enough thought into the game from Black's perspective. He played himself into a worse game, worse position, and I was cruising, I was outplaying him until the moment I stopped doing that, until I was not. So yeah, pretty big strategical omissions in the game, I believe 2 of them. Then in the end game, I mean, I did not convert winning positions, so I'm not even sure which game did I resent more, this one or the round number 4. In both games, I should have won twice. I drew twice, so I have put myself into a big problem because with the score of 5 draws and 1 win, scoreline seems fine. I mean, 3.5 points out of 6. I believe I was top 2 or top 3 in this tournament at that point, so all good, right? But in those type of tournaments, round robin ones, you have to get every chance you take and to fight for the titles, to fight for the norms. In here, I knew that my dreams of getting the international master norm are over, and I knew that my dreams of getting the FIDE master title at this tournament are slim, because I have to make 3 out of 3 in the last 3 games. And during that period, I have to play twice with black pieces. And unfortunately, in the first 6 games, I've played white pieces 4 times, and I won just one of them. So if you put it into that perspective, 3.5 points out of 6 games is not that great. So my morale dropped a lot after this game, and I imagine you can imagine why. And on top of that, I had to play with black pieces on the afternoon because it was double round and it was round in the morning. So yeah, plenty of bad thoughts in my mind during the lunchtime, during the eating process at 2 p.m. and then at 3 p.m. we go again. Will I bounce back? That's the question that will be answered in the next analysis. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this game, at least the picture at the end with the way of me drawing this game. Maybe you learned something too along the way, and if so, I will be happy to hear that. And anyway, we'll see each other next time, tomorrow, next video. Round number 7, black pieces, must win scenario, must watch scenario 2. I leave you there. Thank you all for watching. We'll see each other. Bye bye.